So, Master Taddey, finally, we got you on the line. Everything seems to be working. We got a little bit of a
Yeah, I love that the topic we were talking about before was technical difficulties with virtual classes.
Yes, because we're definitely struggling here. So this is our second attempt, guys.
Well, this is like third attempt at this point.
Yeah, probably. We tried to do this yesterday, but we were failing with our internet back here at the house. And then I forgot the speakers. Don't trust anything to this guy. He always forgets something. So anyway, Master Taddey, it's been a while. How have you been?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, things are a little weird lately with everything going on, but I'm doing good, and just
awesome.
Hanging in there, trying to keep everything going.
Yeah, and how is your school kind of surviving through this time, this difficult time?
So it's been doing pretty good comparatively. Obviously, we kind of had to close down for a while, so there were some people who weren't doing any of the online videos. We had some newer people who were only doing like the pre-recorded like technique videos that I put out. So overall, things went pretty well during this. Luckily, like my overhead, I didn't have to pay any rent or anything during this time, so that was a super help for me.
For sure.
But as far as student-wise, I didn't lose anybody during this time. Technically, I did. Someone got a new job, so they wouldn't be able to come to class, but no one actually left because of COVID. So overall, I think things are pretty going good. How about you guys?
Well, we do have a lot of overhead, so it has been a little hard, but we're going to be hopefully reopening next month, and we'll see how things go. I think it's a little too hard to tell at this point. We have an online membership to our virtual classes that we've sold some, and we've been making some off our toolkits. We have these toolkits that kind of prepare people for the different ranks, like, when they're white belt, to get them ready for their yellow belt testing and stuff like that. But yeah, it's tough right now. I hear a lot of schools are closing down all over America. Anything that's to do with in-person, activities is really hurt right now. I know a lot about you, Master Taddey. I've known you for a long time, but our viewers, our students don't really know much about you. Can you tell them a little bit about yourself and your training?
Sure. So my name is Master Taddey. I live in Wisconsin, and I've known Master Olds for I don't even know how long. I don't remember when I actually met you the first time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you were like 14 or something. You were
something like that. It's it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
But I started training when I was 7, so I've been training for 22 years, something like that. I started off mainly in Taekwondo, and the school I trained at did some Hapkido, some Judo, a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu. Nothing really in-depth, just a couple real basic things. And then once I got into high school, I started teaching and helping out once I had my black belt. And then in college is when I really started training with Master Olds, or like end of high school, college. And I went to college with Master Olds for a little while and ended up kind of taking over his program while he was in Korea. After college, I did some other arts. I did some karate, kickboxing. Currently, I'm doing jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, should specify. And I've done some Filipino martial arts. Haven't been able to do that as much recently just because of my teaching. But getting to like other classes is kind of limited right now, or was limited. It's kind of at 0 right now, but
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and then I started my school probably 2.5 years ago. And now here we are.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, it's a lot of people, they think that schools are started from scratch like yours and I's, but I think more typically, one instructor breaks off of the original school and starts his own school. What kind of challenges have you faced starting a school from scratch? Because I think it's actually a kind of a unique experience and extremely a difficult one.
Yeah, it is. It's a very unique experience. It's not just like an online store where I can just like make a website and sell some stuff. You need a
Mhm.
physical space, and you need to be able to get your name out there and your word of mouth and all that stuff. But when you're starting with nobody, it's super difficult. It's literally me. I went out and I got everything set up. Business wise. I ended up actually finding a space to sublease from a yoga studio, so I don't actually have my own like actual dojang, but I actually sublease. So that's how I'm able to keep my overhead super low,
Mhm.
which is a huge help, especially right now.
Yeah.
Um, and one of my first, or actually my first student was actually someone that trained with us in college, Sarah,
Mhm.
who like
Awesome.
as soon as I put it out there that I was opening my school, she was just all over it because it had been a little while since she trained and everything.
You
So
getting pretty close to her black belt? I feel like she's been training a long time now.
yeah, so I mean, there's a big gap between
Yeah.
like when Rising Phoenix up here kind of closed down and when I opened my school, so there's a big gap. But she's currently a red belt, so hopefully in the next 6 months or so, as long as we can kind of consistently keep training, she should be testing for her black belt.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And she's kind of the definition of like the awesome student that you want because she always comes to class. I mean, she's missing class. She texts me, and she's telling like everybody about coming into class. So she's actually brought in multiple friends from that she knows from hurling, which is another sport that she does, and she's brought in multiple people from that. Um,
It's
so
fun.
those are the core students that you really want to kind of get and
Yeah,
focus on at the
absolutely.
beginning,
Yeah.
and those are the students that are going to really help you grow your school.
It's
So-
funny because Trevor kind of had a similar experience. He kind of went away and then came back to it. And I think I remember they were both blue belts at our summer camp up in Vermont. And that was many years ago now. So that would be great if she can get her black belt soon because Trevor just got his black belt not too long ago.
Yeah.
Actually, that was one of the topics we wanted to
Well,
discuss.
I thought of that. I think the last time I physically saw you was during the summer camp up in Vermont. And
I don't remember which one it was.
Can talk about any memories from that, fond or difficult ones that stick out.
I don't remember which year that I was up there with you, Trevor. I think you were a green belt when I was up there because I was up there 2 different years, and there was the year in the middle that I missed. But I want to say you were a green belt when I was up there, but I don't fully remember. You could have been a blue belt. I don't remember. I'd have to look at pictures.
I was just looking at some pictures. Yeah, he
definitely was, but I don't know. I think that was the first time I've actually met Trevor and your older brother as well. So, but Vermont was a super unique experience because, like, I mean, where else are you going to do that? Like, there's nobody else offering anything like that where, you're training in the middle of a field or running through the woods or, meditating on a beautiful hill, like mountain, or I don't know if you call it a hill or a mountain, but, overlooking other mountains and you have like an actual training platform built in the woods, and it's just such a unique experience. And I think the funniest memory was the first year we drove out there from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We stopped in Ohio to train with Grandmaster Kwan.
Yeah.
And then once we got I think we were in Vermont, but we were like going up the winding road to your cabin. And it was like the middle of the night. It was like midnight, 1 a.m, whatever it was. And I think everyone was sleeping but me and Sarah and maybe Master Olds. And he's just like, oh, you just got to keep going. Just keep going. And she's just like, we're never going to make it here. We're going to die in these woods. Something's going to happen. Because we're all just like dead tired from like being, in the car for 24 hours, including the training with Grandmaster Kwan. And, it's pitch black out. And there's no lights or anything because you're on a dirt road. So
yeah, for people who are just listening, it's 3 miles to the nearest civilization of any kind. It's really a trek into the wilderness.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I want to bring this topic up is because we're thinking very seriously about reopening the camp here. We were thinking about maybe this summer, but it's looking like probably next summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so exciting times ahead for a lot of our students. I think it's gonna be really a big success going back up there again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has a chance to do it, I mean, do it. Don't pass up on this opportunity because, like I said, I don't think there's anyone else that does that kind of like camp. I mean, there's other camps that you can do other places with high level instructors, but there's nothing that's even similar to this that I've ever seen or heard of. So.
And Trevor's been using that space for his acting
Yeah,
retreat.
you should actually see the
And-
facilities because they've
Yeah.
developed considerably since you were there. Because when you guys were there, it was just the platform, or did it have the area above?
It was just a platform when I was there.
Yeah.
I think you might have started working on above
Yeah,
the second time I was there.
a whole loft and then a second stage area, and like it's turned into quite a. It's not really the platform that we originally designed in the forest. Definitely come a ways. Cool. Well, the main thing I really wanted to talk about with you was, you know, as I remember, knowing you, you were always a very religious person, and moving here to Texas, which is a very religious place. I was kind of curious to kind of pick your mind and how has Christianity empowered your martial arts? What has that relationship been like? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about like where you kind of were going with it in the initial email when we brought this up. I wasn't really sure what kind of direction we were going to go, but so I thought of a couple different things and reached out to a couple different people to kind of get their perspective as well and look some stuff up online. And obviously there's, some people, especially like religious people, have a perspective of like, oh, if I do martial arts, I have to follow all these Eastern traditions and orthodoxes and all these kind of things, when yes, there are schools that are going to teach that, but in general, most schools aren't teaching, things like Buddhism or, anything like that. That's just an example, but
Mhm.
most martial arts schools aren't like specifically teaching that. Obviously, basic concepts of, respect and taking care of your body. I mean, all of those things transition between pretty much every religion. And martial arts just kind of helps you focus on them in a specific way.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like martial arts teaches, just basic humanism that is applicable to any, person and any religion. But, I always get these people who, come in, and there's not many, but like once in a while I get someone who's like, well, I don't want to do martial arts because it's, I'm a devout Christian, and I feel like there's going to be some conflict there. And I don't know how to allay their concerns very well. So that's, kind of why I'm wondering, are there things that are particularly difficult about the martial arts? I mean, sometimes we have a meditation class, but
Mhm.
for me, our meditation class is very non-religious. It's just, mindfulness training, focusing your mind, learning to, we call it soft eyes or wide angle vision, learning to develop your awareness, those kinds of things. But for me, that's not religious. But I've seen people come in with this feeling that that is sort of religious and somehow, triggering. And we're always trying to be a place of neutrality,
Mhm.
both for religion and politics and things like that. We just try to do this, place where people can pursue their moralities, but without great, judgment.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, martial arts is a great place because, I mean, you get people from every walk of life. I mean, you get anyone from, I don't know how young you start, but 4, 5, 6-year-old kids up to 50, 60-year-old, adults who are just joining for the first time. And so, everyone's at a different, walk of life. So there's so much like diversity in, martial arts training, or there can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big thing is just, if people have those questions or concerns, just taking extra time to explain, like, or asking what more specifically what a concern is, or, be like, hey, why don't you come and just check this class out? And, you know, if it's not for you, then, you know, maybe then you don't have to do the meditation class. You know, these aren't required classes or,
Yeah, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely.
so, you know, if there's, or like, hey, here's a free trial to come try classes for a week. And then at the end of the week, like if you have any questions or concerns, like, you know, we can discuss those, or I can answer any questions that you would have. But I think the big thing, like, you know, we talked about, there's a lot of crossover and things like respect or taking care of your body. You know, like I said, pretty much every religion talks about that. It's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
depending on,
sorry if you want to go, you can, but I was going to say it's interesting because after spending a long time in Korea, I feel like I really understand Korean culture, and it is very different from our own. Like they have ideas of everyone wants to be the same as opposed to everyone wants to be different. And, you know, they value craft over art. So copying somebody is the highest. Like being able to masterfully copy a masterpiece is more impressive than, you know, just being able to create some artistic thing that's your own, because they believe that first you need to be able to make a Michelangelo before you could be arrogant enough to make your own Michelangelo. So you need to be able to copy first. It's very important. And there's a lot of things like that that are different, you know, but they also, I think the underlining bedrock of morality is the same. They just prioritize things differently. Like they tend to be a lot more humble. They don't talk a lot about themselves, and they have a bit more honor, you know, and they value people with honor. But I think overall, you know, and like the way, you know, they have the same kind of family values, but they spend, they you know, the father might spend more money on his kids than spend actual time at home, things like that. But I think overall, there's a lot of wisdom in both cultures that we can take away. And you know, what we try to do at my school is, you know, show everyone the wisdom in each side and kind of let them find what works for them.
yeah. And then, I mean, unless someone like, you know, specifically asks about, you know, a certain topic, like, I mean, you're not like bringing up, you know, politics or certain religious, you know, viewpoints, you know, during class, at least, you know, not that I've ever seen you do. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have, you know, kind of the rule of no politics, no religion on the Dojang, and navigating that can sometimes be tricky. You know, for me, it goes along the same lines as the reason we wear uniforms. One of the reasons why we wear uniforms is so that everyone is there to train and work on themselves. And if you put on a uniform, you are saying, I am here to be part of this community that is working on improving ourselves, not, you know, differentiating ourselves based on the kind of clothing that we wear or our politics or our religion. So for me, there's definitely not a conflict, but I have heard of people who, when they hear like no religion or politics, they see these things as so intrinsic to themselves that to not talk about them, it feels like it's, you know, denying something. So that's kind of, I don't know if that was what your route was in kind of asking Master Taddey.
I think we're going off in a different area, but I think that that's okay. We are getting a little to a spicy land where we have to be a little careful. But I think that is something that is true. I think these days it's becoming a little bit harder to have the sort of old adages, you know, no politics and religion. But sometimes I feel like it's becoming a little difficult to have that stance. But I still feel very strongly to maintain that, because it just causes division. And in order for people to have meaningful interactions, they need to feel secure. And the best way to do that is to, like you're saying, everyone wears the same uniform. Everyone feels like they're part of the same group. And like, you know, just don't reserve those kind of hard, like, you know, we have the saying, like, you know, reserve serious questions for after class. You know, if you have you know, you want to contest the master, you think like maybe that, you know, could the technique be done this way versus that way? You know, maybe save those for after class. The same thing is true with life, you know. save the spicy questions and the more hot topics for way down the road when you guys have developed a good bond of friendship and you guys can come from a place of mutual respect.
And you can have an actual conversation, not just a cursory kind of one
Absolutely.
that has a lot of tension in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's just a big thing in general with our culture is, you know, we all just need to be able to like sit back and just like listen to another viewpoint. You don't have to agree with it, but
Yeah,
you know, it just
absolutely.
starts off with listening. Like if you can't listen, then you know, everyone's just yelling at each other, you don't get anything accomplished. So,
I have this. I remember I used to talk about a lot in the olden days with our club and stuff, but you know, like empathetic teaching, like first thing you want to do is, you know, find out what that person likes and then try to learn to like the thing that they like. And then by having some kind of shared connection, you can kind of show them what you like and see if they'll like it. It's a lot of likes, but you know what I mean. Let's move on to some other topics. You know, Master Taddey, what are some of the hardest moments in your career? What were some of the most challenging things that you encountered, whether, you know, during training or starting your school that like, you know, maybe made you think about quitting or, you know, shatter your confidence, you know, whatever that might be?
for sure. Yeah, there's definitely been those moments more than once. Like going through grade school, like obviously I started young, so going through grade school, like I played other sports. So like I would take a break from Taekwondo for a little while to play basketball or football. Which, you know, I encourage people to do. You know, I'm not gonna be like, you started Taekwondo, you have to stick with it forever. Now you're stuck. That's absolutely, you know,
You
not.
were really into dance for a little while, weren't you?
Yeah, I did that like on top of martial arts. I didn't stop martial arts for. I did ballroom dancing. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I think the hardest part of my training was when I had a falling out with my initial instructor. Like at the end of high school, beginning of college, like around the time I started training with Master Olds. That was probably the most difficult time. Or you know, leading up to that point, there were some difficulties, and then it kind of just all blew up at, you know, in the end there. But that was probably the most difficult time of when I was like, you know, if I was following this person and putting my trust in this person and what they were teaching me all these years, and then X, Y, and Z happened, like, why should I keep going? You know, then I met people like Master Olds or Sensei Kopesh and some of the other people from Rising Phoenix at the time that, you know, who also had similar experiences with, you know, which, you know, isn't super, which was actually pretty surprising, but, you know, just hearing those other experiences and how they moved on and how they grew from that, and just having those people that had similar things come up was a huge help. And like without those other martial arts people around, like, I mean, I don't know if I would still be training. I really don't know, because obviously I had those people, so I don't have to worry about if I would have stopped or not, because I obviously still going. So, and then starting a school, especially, you know, like starting from scratch and you have nothing, you know, you promote it like, hey, we're opening today, we're opening this day, we're opening this day, trying to get people to, you know, get interested. And then you go in and you open the door and you're like, all right, we're ready for people to come in. And then nobody comes in. You're like, that hurts. And then at that point, you're just like, did I do something wrong? Like, what's going on? Like, why did like nobody, like not even one person came in?
It's
So
also really easy to get so frustrated with that because, you know, you don't realize how flaky people can be until you're on the actual end of scheduling things. You know, we're like,
Yeah.
you know, I got like 30 people signed up for this free lesson and like one person comes in and you're like, what the heck? How can people, I mean, kind of exaggerate a little bit, but not really. I mean, it can definitely be almost that bad.
Yeah. I scheduled a couple like self-defense seminars with a local company where, so like we were both doing advertising for it. We did one and like from their experience with doing like different events, like the first one's always a little bit smaller, and then other people end up coming the next time. So we did another one, and then that one, the first one, we actually got a couple people. We had a small group, and the second one, nobody showed up, nobody signed up, and day of, we're like,
That's hard.
oh man, like you're sitting there waiting for people, and you're just like both just like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
So I mean, those are kind of moments where you're like, man, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Is it worth my time to do? But I think those moments are what kind of make you stronger, because you do push on and you persevere and you don't give up. You have that indomitable spirit, and all things that you learn from training martial arts are,
Do you feel like your time running the club once I left kind of prepared you for that sort of difficulties? Because I felt like when I was running the club, it was so difficult. Like, we would get a room, and it would be very difficult for us to get a room in the first place. And then they stick us in like some closet that, like, I've got like 30 people, and I'm supposed to be in like a 10-foot by 10-foot closet teaching martial arts. And it's like, how do I make this work? And then I basically have to teach with like, a couple of pads and paddles, because that's all I could afford at the time. And sometimes we'd be out on the AstroTurf or like in the forest. It's just like every day was just total chaos, trying to get like a good place to train, and then trying to get new students in was also challenging too. So I felt like, I remember when I was in college and I'd come back to Master Scott, and he's like, running the club is very different from running your own school. And there are, if you have this insane overhead, it is way more stressful running an actual school, and there's other things involved. But honestly, I feel like running that club really taught me a lot about running a school, because in some ways it's a lot harder. Like, you can't get a place.
You're relying on the university to let us use a space, and it was a weird transition going from teaching at like established former actual school, and kind of like running the one location for the most part, and then coming over to Rising Phoenix all of a sudden, and it was, just the environment was different, because it was it was just college students. It's a completely different atmosphere just in that sense. But like you said, like, you're relying on like university to allow us to use space, and getting consistent space was hard to do. Or we get that small room, but that small room is filled with tables. So we're like, how can we stack these out of the way so we have room to at least like stand in there?
You're on carpet, trying to do footwork, and your feet are all getting torn up and stuff. It's just
cement covered in a thin sheet of carpet.
It made us tough. It made us tough as nails. Oh man, and slippery, like linoleum and stuff. It's just like
on like tile floor, and maybe once a week we were lucky enough to get the karate room where they actually had like,
oh my god, it was like being in there.
Those were like the best days ever, because you could actually like practice falls or throws, or like you just move and you're like, oh, that's so nice. You're not getting rug burn while you're doing sit-ups. But yeah, that was an awesome experience, because it was, at the time, I had to rely on some other people who were already there, because I physically couldn't go to the university because I wasn't on their list yet to like reserve space. So like relying on someone else to be like, hey, make sure you go do this, make sure we get these days, or try to get these days and times, and see if we can get these rooms because these rooms are better, and all this stuff. And
that's also very challenging. Getting college students to do things it's like herding cats. It's like
constantly be on them.
2 years later, it's still not gotten the funding for you, sir. Yeah.
So,
anyway, what are some of the most exciting moments of your career?
Obviously, initially starting martial arts. I don't remember a whole lot from the very beginning when I first started, but I know that was like a huge thing when I was little. Like, I really wanted to do martial arts, and like I finally got to do it. And one thing that really sticks out from when I started was I didn't know how to tie my belt yet for like the first couple of classes. And I came in, and Master Scott was like, pulled this other student, you know, higher belt student over and was like, all right, I need you to help him like tie his belt. And I was like, oh my God, this like blue belt is helping me tie my belt. This is so awesome. I know. It was just like, you know, I was obviously like super nervous and stuff because I was brand new and, you know, 7.
Yeah.
And like this older kid who was a blue belt and like I know nothing is like helping me. And
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool, just like, you know, being introduced into that environment of like, we're here to help each other and grow off of each other. Obviously, getting my black belt was a huge thing. I was supposed to test for my black belt, and we told Master Scott, like, we're going to be out of town this date. And then he booked testing that date. So I had to miss testing. And then because someone else actually would come in to do our testings, and then Master Scott would go to this other instructor school to like do their testings. He actually made it happen where, or they worked something out where I was able to go down by them to test at this other school. So I ended up having to test at another location where I've never been, didn't know anybody except for Master Scott. And on top of it, like I was sick with double walking pneumonia. So I was basically dying the entire time. So by the time we got done with that and I actually like got my black belt, like I pretty sure I just passed out in the car afterwards. But I mean, that was just like, I'll never forget that. Like just pushing through that, and like people were like, you need to stop because you're going to die. And I'm like, no, I'm not stopping. You know, I'm 13 years old or whatever it was. And
Awesome.
and obviously like my most recent test, you know, I got tested up in Vermont. So my 4th degree, which is obviously a huge step. So that was, you know, probably one of the other biggest moments besides like actually starting my school. So
yeah, oh, it's definitely well deserved. So we're probably gonna have to wrap it up at some point, but I just had a couple of questions about like books and stuff that you might recommend to some of our students. Are there any, you know, reading material that you think would be good? Any books that have been particularly impactful to you?
Currently I'm reading I'm trying to get through it. It's a little difficult, but it's called the Taeguk Cipher. So it's actually about the Taeguk forms.
Okay.
So basically they're saying, you know, the forms aren't just doing a low block and a punch, and then I turn the other way and do a low block punch. Basically each set of patterns has their own, like basically a range that you would use it from. So like the first 3 forms, Il, I, and Samjan, would be like an initial confrontation. So like kind of a long range. And then they actually go through and they break down each section of the form itself. So, you know, instead of just doing a low block to a punch, it's, you know, I'm, you know, blocking or parrying this attack, and then I actually like bring their arm up and then I can strike, or, you know, I step in to do a takedown, or, you know, just different things like that. There's
It's kind of like bunkai or like application.
Yeah, there's like actually an application to the form besides just that low block punch. The very beginning of the book kind of breaks down like a little bit of history of forms and how Taekwondo has kind of tried to differentiate itself from, you know, like its original karate roots or different arts, you know, that are influenced it. Or even how like different styles of Taekwondo try to differentiate themselves. There was one section where it was literally just a bunch of names, so it got really hard to read because it was like this person trained under this person, under this person, under that person, and that was a little difficult to get through. But like I've always like thought about like what are the purpose of the forms? Like obviously it's, you know, you learn a pattern, but it's like there's got to be something more to it. And then someone told me about this book, and I actually forgot I had it until recently. I don't know if I necessarily agree or disagree with everything that they're saying in it, but it makes you actually think about the forms in a different way. Because like I said, it's not that block, punch, kick, and just repeat. It's how can I use these techniques to actually like, you know, make it like an application or flow into something else in between it.
For sure. That's something that I think, Master Scott didn't focus very much on the forums.
Mm,
But some of the masters I trained under, like Sensei Phil Sauer, Master or Sensei Kopish's master instructor, he did focus a lot on like application on the forums, and from him I learned a lot about like why we do different stances certain ways, why we block and punch certain ways, and I feel like that adds so much richness to the forums. That is definitely something I try to pass on to my students. So I like to read that book. I'm curious his thoughts and yeah, that's cool.
yeah, I can send that information over to you for sure.
Yeah, maybe
Fantastic.
we can put it in the description of our show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Master Taddey, it was really great catching up with you. We'll have to have you back on at some point in the future, hopefully with less technical difficulties than today.
That would be great, sir.
I appreciate your patience. I'm glad the internet held up.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, both ends.
Don't jinx it,
I'm
though.
worried about that, but
We'll email about how the internet held up afterwards.
wait, what'd you say? Sorry.
We can email about how the internet held up afterwards. That way we can.
Yeah,
Nothing happens right here at the end.
exactly. All right. Well, guys, till next time, keep training hard. And Master Taddey, best of luck with your business, and hope you get through this coronavirus pandemic safely.
Yeah, same to you guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you having me on. And
Of course.
hopefully we'll talk to you guys soon.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.